And Mr. Brandenburg, I hear sadly that Mr. Hughes has gone to Ireland.
That's correct. John is part of
Well, however, there are people, it's just a word gets out, and there are people that want to know what did they do, how did they apply?
Yes, we're,
How did they apply?
if they contact either me or Patrick.
Okay, okay. Wow,
We can get on your email?
Yes.
okay. Okay, so now, Madam Clerk, are we ready? Okay, everyone, will you put your phones on silent or travel or something, including mine? And we are calling to order the July 27th, 2020 Commission for the Las Vegas Centennial Board meeting, a day after my husband's 81st birthday. So it's a very important day, so welcome, thank you.
Inquire, it seems to me as long as you've been married to him, is there a beatification process about ready for you to become a saint?
No, I don't count. I'm absolutely secondary in this, as you know. We have the largest doors to the head. Okay, so again, if you're 6 feet apart, you're fine. You can take off your mustache if you want, your mask if you want to breathe. Okay, so here we go.
Mayor,
And are we in compliance with the, oh, somebody mayored.
may I do the roll call, please?
Oh, that's what I was just going to say. Are we in compliance with the open meeting law?
Yes, we are.
And then I would like you to do roll call, please.
Chair Goodman,
Here.
Commissioner Bryan,
Here?
Commissioner Arnold, Commissioner Stodoff,
Present.
Commissioner Brown,
Present.
Commissioner Feldman, Commissioner Coffin.
Here.
Commissioner Hilton, Commissioner Sanook, Commissioner Mowbray,
Here.
Commissioner Truesdale,
Here.
Commissioner Brandenburg, Commissioner Creer, Commissioner Mills. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for coming. And we're delighted to be here, and thank you, Madam Clerk, and your staff, and everybody else that's working this afternoon here. This public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. If you wish to be heard, please come forward, give your name for the record. The amount of discussion as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed may be limited. And if you just come forward to the mics up front. And do we have capability to take anything online? We don't. No. Thank you, Mr. Sherwood. Okay, hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item 4 for possible action to approve the final minutes by reference to the special meeting of the June 8th, 2020. May I have a motion, Mr. Stoll? Thank you. And a second.
Stoll, for the record, move to approve the minutes.
Thank you.
Brown.
And you have to push your mic button on, okay? Nope, the red light. The one
always told me to stay away from those.
way over to the right.
There's a rocker switch there.
Over here?
The side that says speak.
This is different than the other side. This one here?
There you are.
Got it. Sorry, Your Honor. Yes, second. Brian.
Okay, thank you all. In favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. We'll move on to agenda item 5, abeyance item discussion for possible action regarding a grant request by Jim White, project director, in the amount of $106,200 for renovation of the Safari Motel, sign located 2001 Fremont Street. Jim White is unable to attend due to medical issues, but will be able to present at the next meeting. Would like to hold this item in abeyance then until September 28th meeting, and may I have a motion to so
So
be?
moved.
Thank you.
Stoll, for the record.
Thank you.
Brown, second.
Thank you. Please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 6. Report by Brian Loveland, financial analyst, City of Las Vegas Finance Department, regarding the Commission for the Las Vegas Centennial budget for fiscal year 2019-2020, and this is a no-action item. And you're all right, you can take the mic off, nobody's near you.
Sorry.
Take the mic off, take the mask off. Boy, am I really losing. Sorry. And thank you for being here, Brian.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, members of the commission, I've handed out the budget report for the July meeting. On this report, we've updated the projected actual for last fiscal year, which ended June 30th. And based on where we ended up the previous fiscal year, we ended up with revenue of just under 1.8 million. In actual expenses that have been posted so far, we spent $976,000 on approved projects, which leaves a revenue excess of over expenses of about $903,000. And so with the beginning fund balance of 2019 plus the $903,000, we're ending the year approximately about 4.4 million in fund balance. I do want to mention that the current, or the fiscal year ending for FY20 is still open. We have not officially closed the book, so there may be still some expenses that are going to hit or that are still in transit for being payables. So once the books officially close, we'll update that from projected actual to actual. So then moving forward, the budget for FY21, which is for the period of July 1st, 2020 through June 30, 2021, we carry forward the approximate 4.4 million in fund balance. The budgeted revenues are $2 million still. We will monitor that throughout the year. When we put the budget together last year, that was before everything happened with COVID-19, so we'll monitor that throughout the year to make sure that that number is still good, or we'll update as the revenues come in. Currently, we have $1.672 million budgeted in approved projects or carryover from remaining funds from previous years. And then we also budget a fund balance reserve of $500,000. So that leaves 2.1 budgeted for expenses. And then that ending balance there, the ending fund balance, it says unreserved amount available for new grants is $4.290 million. I do want to mention that includes the $2 million that's budgeted, so that's where we'll track throughout the year to make sure that the actual money comes in. So really, if we're deducting all the expenses, roughly we're looking at about 2.2 million in available new funds that we're able to allocate, that we know that there's cash available. Also, based on the last meeting, I did reach out to the DMV to see if there's any additional reports on registrations or what's kind of monitoring with how they've kind of delayed. I haven't heard back yet on the true numbers for June and July, so we hope to have an update in the next meeting to see also if there's any additional reports, as I know their kind of business model, they're tracking things differently now too. So anything we can do to kind of get any new data for the Centennial plates and the registrations, we'll definitely bring back to this meeting and give an update. So with that, if there are any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Loveland. Any questions? Yes, Member Arnold, and then Member Coffin, and yes, all the way. So here we go, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Maybe I missed this. Can you clarify the last bit of data we have? Like what month? How far back do we go?
I believe our last month was May. The plate count through May is, I believe, was the last one we received.
Okay, and did you share what our trend is for the year again?
So the trend is definitely, unfortunately, trending downwards. Most recently, the trend that we're increasing were for the Golden Knight plates and the Raider plates, and then we did see a slight trending. It wasn't a dramatic decline in the Centennial plates, but it was definitely trending slightly down.
Do we have those numbers by chance? We've been watching it for so many years. I'm just kind of curious how we're tracking.
I will say I don't have those numbers with me. If it's okay, for the next meeting, I'll come back with all the data I have, and we'll put the last month's that will show kind of the trending down, if that will
maybe
help.
the previous years as well, just something to benchmark.
Okay, and we may, I don't know if we actually have the data each month. We generally kind of get it quarterly, so we'll put together something that shows what data we do have.
Yeah,
and
whatever you
outline
can
it.
work with. That'd be great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And Member Coffin, please, and then Member Helton, and we'll come up.
Thank you, Your Honor. You know, it's startling to me that we still have $4 million projected ending fund balance. I thought it might be dropping faster than this, based upon Knights and Raiders plates sales. I figured they'd drop. Now, maybe they will drop off the cliff when these seasons get started. Maybe, but I doubt in this fiscal year. It seems to me, you know, it's still prudent to hang on to something, but I'm a little worried about we're maybe hanging on a little too much to what we have here. I don't think it's holy and sacrosanct to have a huge reserve, because there might be city projects that maybe, having been cut because there might be one-shots, there might be things that have been deferred because they didn't look critical. But maybe we should consider hearing about those kinds of things, in case they're remotely concerned with history and city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Member Brown, then Member Helton. You were second, you're fine. Member Helton, please.
I was just hoping that maybe we wouldn't have to wait till the next meeting. Maybe a report could be generated that could be sent out to everyone instead of having to wait till the next meeting.
Yes, we can do that with the data if preferred. Once we get the June plates, I'll put together something and we can email something out.
Because I think it would be really helpful, as Ryan mentioned, to have the different quarters or the different years comparatively, because that way we could really see the long-term trend.
Yes, we can do that before the next meeting. And also to address the fund balance that fund balance is actually from previous years as well. That's not just from the last year. That's been an accumulation from probably several years back. And so basically last year, we ended up with about 900,000 of more in revenue than we actually expended down. So that definitely was a pretty good, large amount to carries forward this year.
And two, I might add to that, I think our director's going to make a report which may touch on the license plates as we go forward, because we were talking about marketing, what we're doing, so the word gets out. So, and Member Stoddall, please.
Just in the, rather than just a series of numbers, if there could be some, if you could analyze those numbers, for example, when the Raiders and the hockey team, the Knights came on board with their license plate, it went up. And how big a bite did it take out of us or other people, or were they fresh to unique license plates? And then if whether or not they tapered off as well or sort of plateaued, that kind of information. I mean, we could probably sit there and do it ourselves and come up with a wrong conclusion. So I'd rather somebody that has the knowledge of numbers kind of put those things together.
Yes, we can definitely outline the list for all the license plates is generally the list we receive, but we will include obviously the Centennial plates and then the Raiders and the Golden Knights, because that's been kind of the larger discussions going forward, and then we'll just kind of group all the other plates as well. And then if we need further detail, we can go down to that as well.
Thank you. Ms. Seabrandt, do you want to make the comment, since it's germane, since we're talking about it, do you want to make your comments that you were going to make at the end just on this item? You know, about the new cars and whatever it was that you had shared.
Diane Seabrandt for the record. So as far as the marketing of the plates, that we're going to have it on our August 10th workshop. So we, as part of the workshop, that is an agenda item that will discuss the plates, the sale of the plates, the marketing of the plates, and how we can better get the word out that we have these plates available.
Good. Thank you. Okay, if there are no more questions or nothing more in discussion, if we are okay. Who can't I see down there? Oh,
Move to
Mr.
accept the
Floyd.
report.
Okay, there is no action needed on this. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 7, final project report by Jerry Walker, Director of Operations and Maintenance, and the restoration installation of the Blue Angel Motel sign and statue now located at the intersection of East Charleston Boulevard, Southeastern and Fremont Streets, and MS Ave, driven by it several times. Beautiful work.
Thank you, Mayor. Jerry Walker, Director of Operations and Maintenance, here to report on the Blue Angel. This was a restoration and relocation project. It was an unplanned project. It came up at the last minute due to development at the site at which it was at, and so there were no long-term plans. It had to come down within a couple of months, and so needed donation agreements, other things. The Centennial Fund stepped forward shortly, large part through the efforts of Councilman Coffin, Ward 5, who had initiated the project with us. $140,500 was allocated to the city in an agreement. That has been fully expended in the following manners. The top arrow, $125,110 was spent through a RFP process with Hartlauer Signs for renovation of both the Blue Angel and the Blue Angel Motel sign. We originally spent $6,600. These were through bid applications to Yesco for removal of the Blue Angel Motel sign, and $1,400 to Yesco for removal of the motel sign. It was $24,897 for the design of the foundations, along with installation of them, of the Blue Angel and the Blue Angel Motel sign. The remaining $7,390 of Centennial funds was applied to that. The $17,000 in change was funded out of allocation of general fund money, which O&M has for median island projects. We also did approximately $40,000 in site improvements. Half of that was internal labor. We did that internally for the cost savings. We spent about 20 grand on concrete, fencing, traffic control, and some other options. Before and after the Blue Angel, where we took her down on the left after the restoration was done, and then the Blue Angel sign, and then to the right, the new Blue Angel sign. We did relocate this within the 5 points. It's about 200 yards east of where it was. In the center, you can see the site plan and where we put it up. It sits behind a bus stop. It's pork chop turn island there at Charleston and Fremont. It fit in quite well, and so it was a good location. We also were able to get power with very limited cost, so it was a good pick for us. And then you can see on the third photo, crew out there working on the sidewalk and the site improvements. The original location, there's where she stood after the motel had been knocked down. We pulled it down one day before record-setting winds leveled dozens of trees in that immediate area, so fortunate timing there. Removal process, the day before the winds, you can see Yesco picking her up and setting her down. And then she came out to the West Yard for a short period of time, then was loaned to the Neon Museum for fundraising purposes, and then came back out while we pushed through a request for proposal. The contract issues took us a little time. The new location shown in the 5 points, you can see the concrete around her. We put some boulders around her to make the area look a little nicer, some cleaner rock. The red stamped concrete that was there was especially ugly, and so it was nice to get it out of there. It was also a trip hazard. Looks much better. And there they are at nighttime. Looks even better at nighttime. Parking's not been a problem. Again, we had significant parking, forget the street name, but there's plenty of parking there. And so everything's done. All of the Centennial Fund money is spent. I'll defer to Seth as whether or not that means we now can close the agreement out. And then 2 more things we need to occur. I have not put the monument signs in yet. We did stand her up 7 days. We social distanced her 7 days before the declaration of the state of emergency. So again, good timing. I still need to put the memorial signs out. We still need to have a ribbon cutting. The memorial signs, there'll be 2 of them. Dr. Seabrandt's already given us text to use. We'll need to see how much text we can get on reasonable size sign. We'll procure that with history of the Blue Angel and pertinent comments, and then there'll be a second one out there that acknowledges and is standard for the standard city parks, and so city council, mayor, everybody that's present, and then in accordance with the donation agreement, there'll be a recognition of the Bartzis group for their donation. I'll try and get that done this fall, shoot for a ribbon cutting about the time temperatures start to cool down.
Beautiful. A couple of questions, and there may be, but I think you did a beautiful job. But before Seth Floyd make any comments, I want to know, one, is the insurance on the Blue Angel under the city's umbrella? And secondarily, who's responsible financially for the upkeep and maintenance, painting, repair?
That's a very good question about the insurance. I hadn't considered it. We're self-insured. I know that we were looking at insurance for larger components, and so I will check with Mr. Raftery and see if this is something we should specially insure. You can see I did place some boulders around her, and we do have fencing around her, and she's on a column, and so it's going to take a pretty good impact to take her down, but certainly something I'll talk to Mr. Raftery about. Streets and Sanitation and the Operations and Maintenance Department is responsible for these type of metalwork improvements or these type of non-landscape median island improvements, and so she's our responsibility and continues to be so.
So for painting, repainting, touch-up, those types of
Yes,
things?
yeah, if something happens there, if we need to add something to it, 10, 15 years from now when it needs to be restored, there is funding available for the median island improvements that we put in, ongoing
Beautiful.
funding.
Thank you. All right, comments, questions? Down there, Mr. Sinnock, Member Sinnock first.
Sinnock for the record. I noticed on Twitter just this afternoon, they posted a picture, Channel 8 did, of the Blue Angel with a Vegas Strong mask. So I don't know who's responsible, but we're getting some good publicity.
That's a wonderful idea. I'd like to take credit for it, but I know absolutely nothing about it, so.
And how did they get to her? That's what I'd like to know.
I'm going to have to ask because we put a 10-foot fence around her.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Sorry, it's digital. It's a virtual mask.
Oh, okay.
Oh, boo.
Little shopping going on.
Well,
were
still
still
off the record, I mean, why can't we put a mask? I mean,
We
it
can
seems
put
to
a
me
mask on her, and that's such a wonderful deal. I'll just plagiarize it right now, and we'll have to get a lift out and this and that, but we'll see about putting a mask on her if Dr. Siebert doesn't have any concerns.
Cute.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, Member Bryan?
Yes. Jerry, there's going to be a plaque that outlines the history of the Blue Angel. Has that copy been produced at this point?
Dr. Seabrand's provided text. I think we'll probably need to cut it back a little bit. Let me first check with the vendor, see how many words I can get on that.
Okay.
And then I will work with Dr. Seabrand to modify what she's submitted, prioritize the text such that we can fit it on a reasonable size plaque or normal size plaque, and then defer to Dr. Seabrand to bring that back to the Centennial Commission for your review and approval before I
Okay,
order it.
that's the question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, so many times, Member Coffin, you've done so many things in Ward 3, and it's amazing.
Oh.
Here's another one of yours. So thank you. Please
If I
respond
could,
here.
Mayor, I'm really proud of you, Jerry, and all the staff. There's a lot of folks that really deserve credit because you stuck with it. Has it been 5 or 6 years since we started this?
No, sir, it's been 3 years. It was in about December of 16 when we heard from the Bartzis group.
So 4.
And then, then the MOU didn't, first they wanted to give it away or donation, then they didn't want to donate it. We did not issue the MOU until March, I think, of 17. We took her down almost immediately upon issuance of the MOU. It took a while to get that through there. And then, as you may recall, first they wanted to donate all the signs, and then we got to just these signs, and then a year later, we went back and got the other signs.
Well, it's quite a story, Jerry, and I could say to you, there has not been a hotter topic on social media over the last 4 years, the care and feeding of that sign. I understand she had been up in the air for 50 or 55 years, I forget, subject to the wind, the sun, everything, all the elements, the dust, and people were worried about how she was laying down in our storage yard. Completely safe, and it became very personal throughout this whole thing. Incredible, the hundreds and hundreds of messages and social media fights about her. And now, of course, it's all gone. I mean, nobody's talking about it because they're taking it for granted. Thank you, move on, the next fight.
Thank you. There's enough fighting in this country. Love something wonderful. Thank you. Mr. Walker, anything? Oh, and Mr. Floyd, you were going to make some comments.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, Mr. Walker asked if there was anything that needed to be done because the agreement is completed. My understanding is it's fully performed, and this is the final step, I believe, is giving a presentation to Centennial Commission, at least as far as the contract is concerned. So I don't have the contract in front of me, but I don't think there's anything else that needs to be done on the contract.
And Mr. Summerfield, anything?
As Mr. Floyd says, this is the last obligation to present the final update, and so this should close out that contract.
And do we need to accept the report, or what do we need to do, Dr. Seabrand? Anything here?
Seabrand, for the record, no, it was just, this satisfies the clause in the contract, so it was just an update and an information item for you, there's no action to take.
Thank you very much. Thank you, as always, for everything you do for us.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Jerry. It's
Thank you,
great.
Councilman.
Okay, wonderful. And we're on to Agenda Item 8, discussion for possible action regarding a grant request from Bruce Bottelson, Vice President of Fund and Partner Development at Neon Museum, in the amount of $300,000 to create a state-of-the-art Archives and Collections Management Center in their newly acquired space at the former Reed Whipple Cultural Center, 821 Las Vegas Boulevard North.
Well, hello.
Hello, wonderful.
Bruce wanted me to be here. Rob McCoy, for the record, Rob McCoy, Chief Executive Officer, Neon Museum, 770 Las Vegas Boulevard North. We are thrilled to be back before this august body again. You folks have been a long-time supporter of the museum and our mission here in Las Vegas, which is to preserve our history. We have an exciting project we want to talk about today. Most of you are already familiar with it. It used to be called Reed Whipple. Here in the future, it's going to be called NE10, which is the nuclear number for neon. So with that, I would love to introduce the man with the plan, Bruce Bottelson.
Thank you. Bruce Bottelson on behalf of the Neon Museum. Thank you, Honorable Chair and respected commissioners, for making time for us today. I'm going to go through a presentation rather quickly, given the background many of you already have on the Neon Museum. We can always come back for questions. Just a quick review. We've had steady growth ever since opening the public in 2012. It's just a steady upwards beat, highlighted by an especially large increase in attendance during the past year alone, and of course prior to the current health crisis. In line with our governor's directive, we closed in March and April, which is annually our busiest season, and also right when we are about to draw capacity crowds for the special Tim Burton Las Vegas exhibit. A quick summary timeline of our history. Two examples of our expanding popularity in just the last few years are the 2018 support for the Hard Rock Guitar Restoration, which came from 43 states and 17 countries, and of course more recently the Burton exhibit, the significant impact of which you can see in our past year-over-year growth. When we closed this past March, we lost 4 of the 24 weeks the exhibit was to run, but still made a major impact on visitation and media attention, much of which was international. This is a map of the downtown cultural corridor on both sides of Las Vegas Boulevard, of course, north from the freeway to Washington. It includes the old Las Vegas Mormon Fort and the State Historic Park, Natural History Museum, Library, Cashman Center, and of course, also the Neon Museum Boneyard. It's a map. Here's a map that locates our topic today, the Reed Whipple building, which is shown with the blue arrow, of course, as an expansion here. You can see the Boneyard on the east side of Las Vegas Boulevard and immediately south of Cashman Center's parking lot. This is the current front of Reed Whipple, which was originally built as the administrative and cultural center of the LDS Church. It was sold to the city in 1970 and then used for a range of purposes. It's been vacant for maybe a decade. We have in place an agreement with the city of Las Vegas that will allow us to restore and occupy it. Reed Whipple addresses a chronic need for space related to fulfillment of the museum's very mission, including room for educational programs, events, and exhibits. We ran out of room at the Boneyard site quite some years ago, and we're currently spending $20,000 a month to rent 2 other office spaces and a storage warehouse that are all off-site. We need indoor storage for some items in the collection that can't be outside because they're either too fragile or were originally built for indoor use only. Another critical benefit that the Reed Whipple building poses to us is that we'll be able to house our personnel in a single location adjacent to the Boneyard. Reed Whipple has 32,000 square feet, which is enough to accommodate our program, staff, and operations into the foreseeable future. Here's a rendition of the front of a restored Reed Whipple building, which we are calling NE10. NE is the element symbol for neon, and 10 is its atomic number. NE10 will require a fair amount of work, but its location and size are absolutely ideal. We feel it will significantly enhance the cultural corridor And it's quite a large step forward in revitalization of the entire area. To fund a project of this scale, we have in the past year been moving forward with a $20 million capital campaign. Of this, $11 million is earmarked for construction costs and $9 million for an endowment. Jan Jones is the campaign committee chair, and the committee is comprised of some very capable and respected members of our community. We've had a few obstacles in the way in recent months, but we've been moving forward nonetheless. This is the former lobby from the La Concha Motel, which serves as our visitor center, entry to the museum, and offers a small space for on-site staff and security. It was built in 1961, the same era as the Reed Whipple building, and it's architecturally compatible with it. But it only has 1,100 square feet, and there's just not much more we can do with it. This is just a basic map reflecting the flow of traffic, foot traffic, between the Reed Whipple, or NE10, and the Boneyard. The city's currently planning some changes in Las Vegas Boulevard, but this is a depiction of the area as it is now. Here's an architect's rendering of the overall new campus footprint, designed and planned use. This is taken from a southeastern perspective. Among other benefits I've already mentioned, you'll note there's spaces there that are obviously for parking, and we will definitely benefit from the additional parking. This is an aerial rendition of the building, but this one's from a southwestern view. The entrance will actually be moved to this side of the building, toward the front there where the two wings come together. So now we're moving to the interior. This is a rendering of the ground floor, which will be a pretty busy area. It'll have exhibition space for the more fragile signs in our collection, space for touring exhibits, galleries, classrooms, and improved capacity for school field trips. They'll have a neon bending studio, large community gathering and event space, conference areas, employee break room, and refreshment areas for visitors. First floor space will really have an open feel. Lots of glass, lots of light, very different than the dark and rather damaged spaces it presently has. By the way, currently sort of seems like one of those Halloween haunted houses if you go to Reed Whipple right now. This is a rendering of the lobby. Again, open, glass, lots of light. Another angle on the lobby. Reception and entry area on the first floor. When we have the room, we'll be able to pursue a lot of new opportunities. For example, there's a good demand for additional educational outreach programs and exhibits, and the galleries and spaces to accommodate these as part of our plan. We're also planning an education center and classrooms, and of course, more indoor space means more year-round programs, especially this time of year. Those of you who have visited the Reed Whipple building over the years will recall the sizable open space at the west end, which was generally used for basketball and large gatherings. For us, this will be a pavilion that will host a wide range of activities, including educational, social, business events, programs, weddings, photo shoots, indoor exhibits. We're a very popular event setting, and this will expand further on that. One additional feature of our ground floor is an area that will enable us to have neon bending demonstrations, workshops, and glass bending classes. We anticipate these will be quite popular locally. Second floor rendering. For staff, second floor is for staff, conferences, and support. Note the open white space in the middle of the pinkish area. That will be open between first and second floor, and we intend to have a neon centerpiece that transcends both floors. It goes from the first floor up into the second floor, and it creates a stunning effect. This is the second floor, a rendering of the second floor. Employee space, meeting rooms. Second floor showing open space that we were just talking about, I was just talking about, with room for the centerpiece to extend into the second floor. Again, a feeling of openness between the first and second floors. It will not be luxurious. We intend to use every square inch but it's an open space building. So now I'd like to address the specific purpose of our proposal and appearance today, which is to support our request for funding of an archives and collections room, a space that's really fundamental to a museum. This chart shows a current size estimate of our non-displayed collection. Among other benefits, an archives room allows greater access to researchers and scholars. It actually enables us to have true collections internships, and it means we'll have the space to expand on all collections. Now, if you allow me, I'm going to return to the ground floor. The blue area here shows the location, the planned location of the archives and collections room. This will be a special space that reflects current best museum practices for archiving, including a dedicated HVAC system with temperature and humidity controls, and readers, pest monitoring, low emission LED lighting, and of course it'll have fire suppression with protective storage containers along with the right shelving, work tables, and bookcases. As an archives room, it will be a safe and secured area of NE10. It's high visibility right off the main lobby. As part of our capital campaign for a legacy project like this, we are offering recognition opportunities for certain high visibility and high impact spaces and objects at NE10. For example, we're offering recognition for the type of and level of support we've respectfully requested from this body. This slide provides an example of how recognition could be displayed. Signage and recognition has to fit with normal museum standards, of course, and this vertical display of the word Centennial Commission it's just one concept we're considering. This is another rendering of how recognition signage could look with the Centennial Commission shown in script as an example. Again, we're looking closely at how nation's museums handle recognition, and we feel we'll be able to acknowledge our supporters in a way that will be easily viewed and in good taste. I should add that the archives room also creates the possibility of new and expanded exhibition and archival partnerships with the city. So that completes our tour of NE10. This is, of course, a view of NE10 from the Boneyard. And finally, here's a depiction of NE10 at night. It really will be a beautiful building when we're done, and it should really enhance the cultural corridor and the aesthetics of its neighborhood. We thank the Centennial Commission for this opportunity to present to you today, and we'll of course be happy to answer any questions. I went through it kind of quickly, so if there's any questions, of course we'll answer.
Thank you. Beautiful job, beautiful. Looks great. Hopefully it happens and happens in our lifetimes. So let me start down. We'll start. Any questions down at this end? I know Member Stoddall, for sure.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Two questions, Bruce, if I may. It wasn't clear to me what the future use of the La Concha historic motel, what is that going to be used for after this building is concluded, as you've described it?
Bruce Bottelson for the museum. Senator and Commissioner, we will continue to use it. The La Concha space is it serves a really great purpose as the visitor's center.
It's an iconic structure, you know.
It's for security purposes and basic flow of our visitors. It's the right place. And so we, and occasionally we have to add certain things on, like we had during the early stages of the pandemic. We put some health protocol inside there. And we occasionally have had, because it's the right place, we've had photo shoots and media coverage take place right inside that building. But there's really very little that can be done with it. There's a space that I'm going to guess is about 5'10", about 100 feet that we use for security and staff to keep their things and their lunches and so on in. And aside from that, there's really no additional space available to us but the front.
And Bruce's second question, if I may.
Could I just interject? Those two buildings, the La Concha and Reed Whipple, were built with just in a year of each other, and they are both excellent representations of mid-century modernism.
Bruce, the second question, in this post-pandemic era, everything you read to the extent of how offices are going to be designed in the future indicates a very radical change. You know, the carousel, what we've historically seen, at least in recent decades, that's a totally new layout. Has that been considered in the design for your office space?
Well, our architects are currently working on some pretty advanced projects, and it's part of the lexicon now. We, of course, benefit by being an outdoor museum elsewhere. Even at these times, we benefit from that. But health protocol is going to be a thing now. It is institutionally. It's part of the way buildings are going to be done.
Well, I'm sure the architects are aware of this, but you get the sense that what we've seen, at least in the last 20 or 30 years, is not the future for the way office space is being designed prospectively. I don't know what it's to look like, but you get the impression that this virus has had an impact on architectural design.
Well, I think for events and field, Bruce Bottelson for the museum, I think because of the events and the kind of visitation we currently have, we're getting attuned to this very well. You know, school field trips are a big part of our world, and the events, the receptions, weddings, anniversaries, and so on, they've already changed us. We've already begun. When we reopened, we had to accommodate, and we were pretty much prepared. We also had some additional security issues at that time. You know, we had quite a large exhibit. We were removing the Burton exhibit. So we have safety and security top of mind, I would say. But I believe architectural changes and certainly HVAC changes are in the offing.
Thank you. And Member Stoddall, please.
A couple of quick questions, or maybe not so quick. Your Capitol Drive, that's public now.
We're in what they fundraisers, professional fundraisers, love to say is the quiet period. So we are reaching out to the usual suspects with significant gift requests.
Okay, since this is a public meeting, it's sort of, we're a little louder than a quiet. So let me ask you, do you have a dollar figure that you're trying to raise?
Oh, yeah, 20 million.
20 million.
11 million, Bob, 11 million for the actual construction completion, 9 million for an endowment. Neon Museum's never had an endowment. We've had this wonderful luxury of being able to meet all of our expenses and then some by selling tickets.
I don't think this board is allowed to give you an endowment, so let's just stick with the 11 million
Yes.
for the building itself. You were here earlier, was there some question about how much money this commission is going to have over the years? I think it's probably going to be still in the neighborhood of $800,000 to $1 million a year that we're going to be able to generate from the license plates. That said, how did you arrive at the $300,000 figure today for this as opposed to $100,000 or $950,000?
We took into account, Bruce Bottelson on behalf of the museum, Commissioner, we took into account the cost. Our Director of Education has a fair amount of experience and priced out everything. This is, it's not the Mercedes, it's what we need to be able to operate safely and securely. So he priced it out.
Okay, where I'm going with this is something that Senator Coffin, Commissioner Coffin or Councilman Coffin, one of those titles, that we may be...
Sorry. I think I had a clarification, Bob. Maybe I didn't understand the question correctly.
Well, let me just be blunt. I would like to see something to come before this board. Maybe at the time you have gone public with your fundraising or you finalized it, but whether or not there may be something, we have committed over the years, $100,000, $200,000, $500,000, I'm not sure we've gone that high, annually towards a project. This is preserving an important part of our history. It's one of the great successes in this community and around the country for museums. And I would be very supportive of seeing a bigger proposal come before this board at some point. Thank you.
And if I might interrupt here, Member Stoddall, Dr. Seabrandt, do you want to make some comment here, or?
Seabrandt, for the record, right, so We had a quick discussion about this earlier today. So we looked over the grants that were given by the Centennial Commission to the Neon Museum going back to 2005. 2006, I think, was the very first one. And there have been several $100,000 or more grants, and over the course of when this commission has given out money, it's coming up to about $1 million of that, maybe a little bit more, $1.5 million that we have, that the Centennial Commission has awarded. And I know there was a question as far as what more will be given out. I don't know if the Neon Museum has actually knows at this point in time how often they're going to come back to the commission for funding. So there have been quite, the last grant, though, that was awarded was 2016, and that was to purchase the, I believe it, was it an old building or a parking?
LA Street Market.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's great, sort of, for the record, to have this sort of, I don't mean, when I use the word piecemeal, I don't mean that to be negative, but there's a big project here, and this is the perfect body to be part of a bigger picture rather than this piece and that piece and so forth. That's just me talking, so that's just a thought that I had. This is an important project to our community, important project to our city, and I'd really like to see us be a bigger part. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'd like to add here, I think we did have the discussion ahead of time, but this is a work of art going forward, and I'm sure you're going to be back often, and many times into the future you have a lot to do. One of the things that I really have heard inquiry about into the mayor's office, classes, and when you talk about the neon, in particular glass blowers, very interested. And when you showed that one picture there, I was thinking something much bigger where you really could hold significant classes for people coming in from abroad, much as they do in Venice at the Lido, where you have, I mean, for the neon. And so something like that, a lab for neon, that alone could cost $5 million.
For the record, Rob McCoy, Neon Museum. You're absolutely right, Mayor, and that is in our plans. That was just sort of a picture that Mr. Bottelson used. But we're going to have glass blowing 101, 201, 301, and we'll be able to accommodate, probably on an annual basis, upwards of 200 to 300 students. I think the two best features of this project are, one, what I call the glass garage, which is the glass blowing, and number two, the archive room. Our archives are growing like you can't believe. Federal Heath, which has been in this market for decades, closed their Las Vegas offices last year, end of last year. We got all of their archives, some of the most incredible renderings and blueprints in the history of the city. They're now part of our collection. So this archive room is really key to our future.
Well, and I would like to add to that, I think it's too small. Looking at where it is located, and believe me, I'm not in the business at all, but looking at that and knowing the growth and knowing the saving of pieces, varying sizes, and to have a special temperature, it needs to have a place to expand. And in what you showed here, there was a center locale for it, and there was no room to do that. So just to the specific of what Member Stoddall said, the 300,000, nice round number, is sort of really to get you started? Is that sort of what this is? Or specific, maybe Dr. Seabrand, you can, because you must have gotten the request in detail.
Our collection, once again, Rob McCoy, our collections people have taken a look at this, and they feel that 300,000 is the figure to be able to outfit that space that's in the floor plan. Future expansion is another subject altogether. It could be right next door to that space. There is also a basement under Reed Whipple that sits on the north side that was originally the baptismal, I believe, for the LDS church, but then became sort of a black box theater. That space is available to us. We have not done anything with that in any of our plans or renderings at this moment.
Wonderful.
One last
Well,
question.
yes.
You showed, Mrs. Bottelson, the building as it stands now with that sort of glass mosaic. That in with the E10?
NE10.
NE10, that is going to be covered up or taken down?
The mosaic?
Yes.
We've been told by historical preservation folks that go ahead and remove it. That was the last word I had from them. And you know, are you talking about the plywood piece that's in front of the mosaic or the mosaic that's under the plywood painting piece? The mosaic, which was the LDS mosaic, is still there.
This, now, what is this?
This was, I believe, a Juneteenth commemorative piece of art that was added to Reed Whipple not long before it closed, probably about 10 years ago.
Okay, and this is coming down.
Yes.
Is it going to be preserved?
We are more than happy to preserve that, as well as the mosaic tile piece that's under that piece.
And you'll be able to do that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so how about a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the item still on for the record, which is item 200057-CLC1.
I'll second it to Member Bryan.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye, please.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank
Go
you so
forward.
much.
Thank you, Commissioners, for your time and consideration today.
Thank you. Woo, how exciting. All right, number 9, mid-project update report by Mariana Ruiz, the architectural historian for the Nevada Preservation Foundation on the Hue Taylor Archives project, Phase 2, approved by the Centennial grant of January 2018. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I am clearly not Mariana Ruiz.
I could tell that, even though you're in disguise.
So I'm Heidi Swank. Mariana, since I was here, but then you can't see the great
From here, it's
biggest
very hard. It
showgirl
looks
mask.
like a long beard.
Oh, no, but this is all that has showgirls and the Las Vegas sign and roulette. Here, I'll take it down.
Okay. Beautiful.
So I am here to give a report, an update on the Hue Taylor Archive, whose curation has been supported by the Centennial Commission. Let's see, where do I? There we go. Okay, so just to go back a little bit and give you an overview of where we are right now with the Centennial Commission, with the Hue Taylor Archive, we have over 5,000 architectural drawings that have been organized into 1,062 records. That's one drawing or one piece of paper per project of Hue Taylor's. All drawings were scanned at 300 DPI and uploaded into our database. The physical archive was then moved to the Nevada State Museum on permanent loan, where it's available to the public by appointment only, and also researchers can easily access it too at the Nevada State Museum. We use a museum software called Past Perfect. It's what all museums use. It's what the Nevada State Museum uses, so for easy integration. So everything was uploaded into the Past Perfect archive, which currently resides in multiple places, was at our office, is now at Mariana Ruiz's house, because we're not in our offices right now, and with backups in various places on thumb drives. It is available, also part of it is currently available online, and we also will often pull things for folks who request it, who are interested in information on Hue Taylor. So this part was completed in fall of 2018, and the visual you see right there is one of the entries on the archive. And this is, if you go into the archive, this is one of like the opening sheet, the opening page you see for each project. Now here we'll move, this is the same record. You can pull up, as you can see in the upper right of that image on the left, you can see the little floor plan. You can also click on that and it becomes larger. And then this actually, I want to say a little bit about this particular project, which I'm really glad that Mariana put in here. It's Hattie Mae Pavlo's house, and she was the inventor of the traveling ironing board. The little ones that fold up that go in your suitcase, she invented them. So as far as the online part of the Hue Taylor Archive, so everything was uploaded into Past Perfect, which is accessible through our website. So you go to our website and you can enter into the Hue Taylor Archive. The direct link is right there for you. We also have a page specifically on the Hue Taylor Archive, and when you go to that, you'll see off to the left on that page an advertisement with links on how folks can get their Centennial Commission license plate. On this page, you can also browse through all of the archive records, and each record displays the most important information on each of these projects. And this was completed in fall 2019. And you can see here on the right, this is the entryway into the Hue Taylor Archive. This is once you go into the archive, there's a button at the top, which is actually really, if you're just trying to get a feel for the archive, it says Random Images, and it pulls up a random selection of projects from across the archive. On the right, you see a particular archive entry. Now you'll notice that this looks different than what you saw here. This is more internal for our documentation and for researchers. Online, we're trying to make it a little bit more palatable and easier for folks to find. So people think they live in a Hue Taylor house, they can go in and put their address in, and it'll pull up their house for them. So you can go in and kind of get to know Hue Taylor and his work here. We also have a page that explores 6 of the homes that were part of the Desert Inn Estates that were designed by Hue Taylor. There are 6 3D tours that you can take. It's a combination of custom, and sorry, there's a typo in there, tract homes. Each contains 8 to 10 viewpoints with 360-degree renderings. This is actually really fun when we are out in the community doing events, because we have little glasses that you can use. Got to make sure people are sitting down, but they can actually go in and they can look around, and it's like they're looking through the house. And they really can get a feel for what these houses were like on the Desert Inn Estates. The renderings were completed in 2015 by Insight Studios, that's Jeff Wagner's firm. And then the tours were uploaded to our site, and that was completed by fall of 2019. And just to give you a better idea of what these look like, so this is the Elizabeth Taylor home, and Eddie Fisher, of course. You can see on the left there is the floor plan of that house, and each of those dots are different places different vantage points where you can take a look inside Elizabeth Taylor's house. So you can go into Elizabeth Taylor's bedroom. And so here you see on the right the entryway and from her home with the beautiful the beautiful plants on the inside and really merging that interior and exterior. And so we have 6 homes, some of them tract homes, some of them custom homes. This was actually a tract home that was designed as part of Paradise Construction Corporation. We have also, earlier with a grant from the Nevada Humanities, I conducted the oral history with Hue Taylor and Priscilla Taylor. Hugh passed away a few years ago. Priscilla, we actually just lost 2 weeks ago. I was able to interview both of them in January of 2015, and we have the full transcripts, and you can even listen to Hugh and Priscilla talk about their lives. So you can go on the website and listen to it, as well as read the transcript. And here are the from the 2 different days of the interviews. And now we have also developed some virtual exhibits because we know that not everybody wants to dig through an archive. We know that people want to go to something that's curated and is thematic. So right now we have completed, as of April 2019, 2 exhibits. One on the fallout shelters that we found scattered across the Hue Taylor Archive, one of which has a bar, a living room, a bedroom. It's a massive bomb shelter. And then also we have an exhibit on women-owned houses. We found it really interesting that there were a good number of women who on their own hired an architect as well known as Hue Taylor and had him design their house. Our future exhibits that we're hoping that we'll be completing by the end of December is one on low-density apartment housing. If you know of course now I'm missing it, on Desert Inn, the Diplomat, that's a Hue Taylor, and we have all of the drawings for that. And if you ever get a chance to go on Google Earth, you'll notice that the building itself is bow tie shape, and the pool inside mirrors that shape, and it's also a bow tie. And that was what Hue Taylor was. They're really excellent. The apartments in there are pretty amazing. So looking at low-density apartment housing, also looking at commercial architecture from the 1950s, and then looking at minimal traditional, the really simple houses. Hugh had always said that the thing that he thought he contributed most to architecture was building homes for regular people. And so we wanted to be sure that we honor that memory by putting together an exhibit on minimal traditional homes. This is an example of what you see when you go to one of the virtual exhibits. This is through our Past Perfect software that we use, and this is just the entry page that takes you then through each of the homes that are featured in that exhibit. So there are 5 to 8 records that are included in each of these. There's an architectural context and also a client history. You have a lot of information in there, but we've also gone to Google Earth and pulled in some of that imagery as well as newspaper archives to really flesh out the stories in these exhibits. Now we're also working on some collateral material. As anyone who knows who's in architecture or development, the drawings are actually the final piece. There's a lot of collateral that goes with that too. So we are documenting on a much more rough scale, contracts, budget sheets, engineering documents, client correspondence, material brochures. We have about 478 records here. We aren't documenting these individually. We're more noting what project they go with. Those, again, will go to the Nevada State Museum where researchers can then go and take a look at them. This should be done by December of 2019, and then we'll transfer those with the physical archive at Nevada State Museum. And then all of the archive records will go into the Past Perfect database by October of this year. And then once we have everything pulled together in a whole piece, then it will get all uploaded to Google, sorry, get uploaded to Google Glacier, Amazon Glacier, too many of these words. Amazon Glacier, which is a long-term storage space on the cloud, and a place where we know we will not lose all of the work that we've put into this. We also had the Tony and Wilbur Clark photo collection. This was donated to us by Tony Clark's second husband. We have 259 photographs of Wilbur and Tony that were donated. And these have, we only keep the pieces that intersect with Hue Taylor. And so we've got the Desert Inn Casino, some celebrities, the Clark residence that was not designed by Hue Taylor.
He's squeezing her arm to death.
He's very excited, it seems, right?
Or she daren't move. Wow.
Doesn't look real happy in the photograph. Were you having troubles at the time, or do we know? Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. We have a bunch of photos of them in which they do look much happier. So these have all the photographs have been digitally scanned, and then they will get uploaded into the archive online. So what we have yet to complete is get the collateral into our past perfect database, get the Wilbur Clark photo collection also into there, which should be finished up in September. We have some miscellaneous records and objects that were donated both by Hue Taylor and by the Wilbur Clark estate. We have Hue Taylor's architectural stamp, which is quite nice. So we have some things that we still need to document and get in there. And then compile the 3 additional virtual exhibits, and then all of this gets uploaded to Amazon Glacier. So what we've been doing now is planning for the next steps. We have been having conversations with the National Endowment for the Humanities about how best to build upon all of this work that we've been doing with Hue Taylor. And so we have been working with them, and we submitted a grant earlier this year for $80,000 for a prototyping grant in order to develop an app. And the one you see here on the right is it's by OnCell, which is the provider we're looking at. This is an organization in Florida that uses OnCell for their historic sites. And so the idea is to develop a prototype that when people have this app on their phone and they are cruising around Las Vegas, it will alert them when they are near a Hue Taylor. It will tell them that there's a Hue Taylor here, and you can click through and you can see that Hue Taylor, you can see the tours that will go with it, and you will be able to go, and it's almost like Hue Taylor coming out to meet you in your car and sitting in the back seat and giving you a tour. And so this is really the first piece of that prototyping grant, and then beyond that, this is the NEH's progression of things. So you do the prototype first, and then we do the production grant for $400,000 in order to make sure that we have all of the content in here and it becomes extremely visible. This also includes marketing money to make sure that people know this exists. So we will have these individual resources. There'll be text. There'll also be recorded history information so that folks who may need to listen to it and not read it, that will be there too. And the plan is that, and it seems kind of timely, but it will be linking modernism into a previous global pandemic, the tuberculosis pandemic. Out of that response to the tuberculosis pandemic, modernism came. And it takes back to what Commissioner Bryan was saying about the changes in architecture and how modernism, in conjunction with the response to tuberculosis, changed architecture. We have open spaces. You have buildings that don't have decoration on them for easy cleaning. You have a lot of sun that comes in with the idea of bringing the indoors in to make for healthier buildings. And all of this came out of the sanatorium movement and the tuberculosis pandemic. And so our proposal that we wrote to the National Endowment for the Humanities is to explore that link between mid-century modernism as it is shown in Hue Taylor's work, and how that was influenced by the global TB pandemic. And I should also say that we had a great talk that Mariana gave as part of our History at Home that we did in April, a wholly virtual event that was free so that folks could find something to do while we were all stuck at home. And so if you want to go on YouTube, our YouTube channel, you can learn more about the archive. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Absolutely wonderful. Comments, questions?
Just a quick start off of the record. Can we get the PowerPoint emailed to us? Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Member Bryan?
Yeah, thank you very much. A very interesting and well-done presentation. The homes that you depicted here, were they on Desert Inn Road?
I'm sorry?
The homes that you depicted here, were those homes located on Desert Inn Road, next to the golf course?
Some of them were, and some of them were more interior. So as I remember the Desert Inn Estates, the homes that were along the exterior roads were tract homes. Those were Paradise Construction Corporation homes. The custom homes were more on the interior. And so if you look at, let's see. So the Elizabeth Taylor home was surprisingly a tract home. That was along one of, I don't exactly know which road, but the Edwards family home and the Bliss, it's the Bliss Dairy, the Bliss family home, those were custom and those were on the interior.
And the reason why I ask is Ruby Collard, who was one of the owners, Al Rowan, Ruby, and Mo, they were the boys. And Ruby Collard's home was on the golf course. That would be on the north.
I know we do have.
Facing south, but, and Emily Wander, one of the first, not the first one, but a woman lawyer here in Las Vegas, Emily Ann Wanderer, she had a home. And I didn't know whether you had anything with designing those homes or not, or whether that's come to your attention at all.
I know that if they were tract homes in the Desert Inn Estates, they were Hue Taylor's. And then he also did a number of the custom ones. I'm not sure, I'd have to look up the names. If you email me, it's really easy for us to look up any names.
I really don't know. I was quite young at the time.
But if you're, even if you're just curious, we get it all the time. People call and they're like, so-and-so owned my home. Is it a Hue Taylor? It takes us 30 seconds to look it up. We love doing it.
Ruby had a daughter, and I was more interested in her than the architecture, so I'm sorry that I should have been thinking ahead, but I was not.
Thank you. Great report. There's a report only. Yes, Madam Helton.
This is Louise Helton for the record. And Heidi, I just want to thank you so much for providing all of those links. One of the things that we've, I actually, with the Leadership Las Vegas class, they have the History Day, which of course is probably why we have a lot of this license plate money. But in doing that day, I've always stayed on that committee, and they're looking for links to anything out in the universe that people can avail themselves of to learn about history, because there's resources that should be available. I can't tell you how hard it is to find those resources. They are not readily available. Even after all the money that we've spent, we can't pass that information out to anybody. I mean, all we have is an Excel spreadsheet. So I'm very excited that you have these links that are available, and it's something that I'm so grateful that you've done voluntarily, but I think it informs us of what can be done going into our workshop in August, because I think that that's something that's really critical for us to have as a commission and as a community, to be able to access all that great information. And there's little breadcrumbs here and there, but it'd be really wonderful to have a real roadmap so that people could learn about our history more easily. And thank you for making it so easily digestible and easily found. And I'll look forward to getting that PowerPoint because of all these great things you've packed in here.
And Heidi Swank for the record, but I'm going to toss that right back to you because it wouldn't be possible if we didn't have these grants. Until we had gotten the grants from the Centennial Commission, we had been making some advances, but we certainly would not have been able to pull all of this work together. And nobody even knew Hue Taylor did all of this work. Everyone knew he did the Desert Inn Casino, but it wasn't known that he had done, 1,000 projects, and 1,000 projects, some of those are entire neighborhoods. So he's done thousands and thousands of residential homes and commercial buildings in Las Vegas.
Yeah, he did the Morelli House.
Yeah, it's a lovely piece.
Well, thank you. That was a great report. So we'll move on to agenda item 10. So don't go so far away. Now we have money in front of us. And this is agenda item 10, discussion for possible action regarding a grant request from Heidi Swank, Executive Director, Nevada Preservation Foundation, in the amount of $27,500 for the costs associated with conducting an in-depth survey of the Biltmore Bungalows and the research necessary to establish the neighborhood's significance for local, state, national historic register nominations.
So Heidi Swank for the record. Before I go in, I want to just give one nerdy note here. What you see on the PowerPoint, the Biltmore Bungalows, is in brush script there. I chose brush script because it was invented in 1941, which is the same year that the first part of Biltmore Bungalows was platted. So I always think of that as a really nice match for the Biltmore Bungalows.
And if I might, just before you get going, I have a letter here from Derek Stevens, Derek J. Stevens, manager of the 18 Fremont Street Acquisition LLC. Dear Assemblywoman Swank, thank you for your assistance in working with the Biltmore neighborhoods to approve our warehouse at 634 Main Street. Additionally, I want to reiterate our support for the historic designation of the Biltmore Bungalow neighborhood and our pledge of the last $10,000 needed towards the designation process. Good luck with everything. Let me know if you have need any further assistance. Very nice.
Thank you, thank you. So I'll talk a little bit about the Biltmore Bungalows history, and I believe that the original survey from 2003 is in your packet, but just a little bit of a history. So 1941 was the first phase of the Biltmore addition that was platted by Biltmore Homes. In 1942, the Biltmore Addition Annexes 1 and 2 were also platted. I won't be talking about the number 3 addition, only because that was not found, according to the 2003 survey, to have a significant or sufficient historic integrity, so we are not including that in this project. So the construction was completed of these homes by 1943, so we're still in pre-war Las Vegas. We're not in the mid-mod, we're not in the cool sleek, we are in pre-war. Some really great houses, roughly 168 homes making up these 3 phases. The architectural styles started off as minimal traditional, mainly because these were FHA homes, and that was the preferred architectural style of the FHA. As we got into a little bit later, into 1943, we saw a few more ranch-style homes come up also, but for the most part, these are these very simple, minimal traditional homes. As I said, they follow the FHA guidelines with a preference for the minimal house and also curvilinear streets, so nice winding streets. If you ever drive into the Biltmore Bungalows, and I drive by there every day on my way to work, it's a great little, just nice little curvilinear roads to take a cruise through the neighborhood. Many of the residents worked at Basic Magnesium and the Gunnery Range, and then in post-World War II Las Vegas, this was a place where GIs came and settled with their families.
Your Honor. Bob
Yes,
Coffin.
please, Member Coffin.
Thank you, Heidi. Thank you very much for this presentation. If you go back one slide, go back to your original. On the left-hand side, I don't know who else noticed the location of the model home at Maine and Clark. We are at Maine and Clark here in this building, and I don't know, I don't think you mentioned it, but it's probably on the other side, because my mother owned 108 Clark, and I suspect that was like a 102 or something like that. And it wasn't there when she owned that, though, so that shows you how fast they come and go, which will now be part of the plaza that the city is building.
Heidi, wasn't it Maine and Bonanza, or am I missing?
Heidi Swank, for the record. The current development is on the corner of Maine and Bonanza, and heads north from Bonanza.
And those were old, that's what I recall as the Biltmore, and there was a hotel.
And it could be that they just had a model home there, right? So that it was easy for folks to kind of run into.
The homes were occupied, when I was a kid. I learned to swim there in 1943, and
right.
I just am a little bit confused. That's what I thought in my mind was the Biltmore. Tract, yeah.
Yes, and the Heidi Swank, for the record, and the Biltmore was where the warehouse is now, and then right beyond that is the Biltmore Bungalows. I would bet that this was the model home that they placed at the corner of Maine and Clark, just for...
In later years, the members of the Fourth Estate consumed many adult beverages on that corner as well.
Yeah.
All right, so Heidi Swank, for the record. In 2003, the City of Las Vegas hired 20th Century Preservation to inventory and document the Biltmore Bungalows. And that was done between October 2002 and March of 2003. And the focus was to determine possible eligibility for the National Register. So Ms. Courtney Mooney was the person who conducted this survey, and she had a couple of conclusions. First, her conclusion was that the first 3 phases, and I'll quote her here, contain great historic value as representatives of World War II and post-World War II Defense City housing development in the city of Las Vegas. And then the second conclusion she had was that an in-depth study was needed for possible inclusion in the National Register of Historic Places and a City of Las Vegas historic district. So taking this, we went to the neighborhood and spoke with them because all preservation should be local, and we wanted to know if this was something that they were interested in. I would say that they were super excited to get that history of their neighborhood. It's not a really large neighborhood, it's not even 200 houses, but people there are very invested in their community. We worked with the City of Las Vegas Neighborhood Services to pull together a meeting for the Biltmore Bungalows, and this was, in the before times, so January, December, somewhere it was cold. And we worked with them to get a neighborhood meeting going. Also because the Biltmore Bungalows didn't at the time have an active neighborhood association, and so we wanted to help them kind of get that together too as part of what we could help them with. So Neighborhood Services ran the meeting. It was very well attended, especially for a first go. And they talked through services and collaborations with the city, any grants or like help they can have for like putting together their neighborhood association. And they ran most of the meeting. And then Nevada Preservation came in, and we talked to them about whether or not they were interested in becoming a historic district. We explained the city's process, that it's a voting process, that we have to get 51% of the community members to sign on in support, and that this would take some time. But they were all very excited about learning more about the history of their community, and that they could know more about these houses. And they all had great stories about their houses, little architectural features or somebody they heard had lived there. So it was a very good meeting. So we decided that Nevada Preservation would apply for this grant, conduct the survey, and then work with the neighborhood to on the designation. I had planned to get some folks from the neighborhood to come to this meeting, but I just drove back from Carson City last Tuesday, and I'm trying to get caught up before I have to go back. So that did not happen, and my apologies. But they are very interested in pursuing this. And I will say too, talking with Neighborhood Services afterwards, we were all very surprised that there was no naysayers in the room. Everyone was very excited. That doesn't always happen. You gotta get people to warm up to the idea. That was not the case there. So now just looking a bit at the budget. So in the project budget, the Las Vegas Centennial Commission asked, that's that right grant ask column. We had these expenses would cover mostly hard costs, so things that would come back to the city, like a National Register nomination, like the Historic Resource Survey, so things that would return and have a tangible return for the city. As the mayor said, Mr. Stevens has donated the last $10,000 for this project. The Biltmore Bungalows, we always ask when we work with neighborhoods that they raise part of the money that goes toward getting their designation, and we help them with those fundraising efforts. So they will raise $2,000 of that, and then for us, neighborhood designation is our core mission. It's where we started with the Beverly Green designation, and so we just really aim to cover our costs, and so that we can provide this good. So that takes $5,000 off of what was a $44,500 project and brings it down to $27,500, which is what we are asking from the Centennial Commission. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Member Arnold?
I don't want to cut anyone off with any questions, but I just want to say it's always a pleasure to see you, Heidi. You always bring projects I have no issues with, and I'd love to make a motion for approval.
Okay, let me get
I'll
comments
second it.
from Member Stoddall, and then I heard Member Helton gave a second already.
A couple of quick questions. One, this is the history of this district, the history of these homes. There have been other attempts to create a historic district. I think when Courtney did the report in 2003, and the city's Historic Preservation Commission had several meetings, public meetings, and there was a lot of pushback. They didn't feel that they wanted to go through that process. Times change. But also over the years, there have been several stories in the newspapers and the media that those bungalows have become investment properties, that the original owners, that most of them are rentals now rather than ownership. Have you had a chance to get any sense of that?
Thank you, Heidi Swank for the record. Yes, so interestingly, the initial people who approached us are investment owners.
Okay.
And they would like to get the designation for their houses that they have in Biltmore Bungalows. And then beyond that, after we met with those folks, then we started to meet with the community members. And I'm still surprised that, like, I've been doing historic preservation for a while. You often, you always have to take some time to educate people on what this means. Right. This was the first neighborhood that we have talked to, because we'll go talk to neighborhoods. We'll be like, okay, not time. We'll come back another time. Let us know when you're interested. This was the first one that there was nobody who, there's a gentleman who lives there who's not always the happiest person on the planet, and he was all in.
Well, going back to the days of John S. Park, when we went through that process, in the Las Vegas neighborhood, we went through that process. I do remember the days of being called a communist and a fascist by the same person. So if that mood has changed in that neighborhood, that's wonderful. Are you simply looking at a district, or is the potential of having some of the homes unilaterally as historic structures?
Heidi Swank for the record, we are not looking at individual, we're just looking at the district. And that we would do a local historic district, but also a state and national register. And we are, because those are very similar documents here in Nevada, if you do one, you should do the other. And so we plan to do both of those. And in part, that is because if you are on the National Register, if your building is in a National Register district and you are an investment property, you can get access to the federal historic tax credit for renovations to that home. And so that's attractive for folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There's a motion by Member Arnold, second by Member Helton, and I'm going to call for the question on this. All in favor, please signify by aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much,
Thank
as
you.
always. And you drive back and forth each time.
I do.
Oh, what a saint.
But then I get to see Nevada.
Yeah, but that's nice.
Your Honor. Your Honor.
Thank you.
Yes.
Something of interest to Heidi will be that, or maybe you don't know this, that all the bungalows to the east of the boulevard will be taken down. I mean, it's in the plan in a future, as you know, Cashman expansion. That's the plan. The plans change, but that's, just so you know that.
Heidi Swank for the record, you're talking about, so you're looking at the third annex.
Yes, behind the Neon Museum.
Yeah, those are not, they have been, their historic integrity has been so undermined that they're not even part of our project.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And I just heard from my office, it says, listening in, Assemblywoman Swank is right. We've had 2 constituents from the Biltmore Bungalows area in support of this. They called the office. Thank you. Thank you. Well done. Travel safely. We're on to agenda item 11, discussion for possible action regarding a contract with Boyd Productions for the Las Vegas historical documentary covering the period of the 1930s, which I thought we have already approved, and therefore this is just a financial need to vote on the contract formally. Do we know who made the motion before? It would be nice to have the same people do it.
I wanted, Robert Summerfield, Director of Planning for the record, I believe it was Member Stovall who made the motion to approve and continue with Boyd Production for this third installment and establish the budget at $200,000. As you say, Madam Chair, Mayor, the request here is just, if you had a consent agenda, this item would have been on your consent. This is a formality based on your previous vote and direction to staff to negotiate that contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you recall who gave you a second, since you're the one that was?
I believe it was Senator Bryan.
Okay, may we have you repeat that?
Well, I'd like to make a motion to approve the, stole off the record, to approve item 200066 CLC1
Thank you, and a second by?
Second, yes.
Second by Member Bryan. So all in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And we will move on to Agenda Item 12, report by Dr. Diane Brandt, Executive Director of the Commission of the Las Vegas Centennial, regarding completed current projects and announcements relative to the Commission for the Las Vegas Centennial.
Thank you very much, Diane Brandt, for the record. So just a quick update on all of our grants. Of course, everything has been slightly delayed due to COVID-19, but so the Mob Museum is still waiting for the final vehicle wrap, but their grant was extended until the end of the year. The Junior League of Las Vegas will be attending the September meeting to give an in-person update. For the HPC funding, similar to our meetings here, we have reconvened our meetings there with the Historic Preservation Commission, and we'll be voting on projects in the coming months. Harrison House, they have started their project planning. The UNLV Oral History Project, that is still scheduled to start on August 1st, even though schools will be mainly online. Most of the project preparation for this can be done singly, remotely, and online as well. Floyd Lamb Park Hay Barn, we did get final approval from SHPO for the roof shingles, so that project's moving forward. Project Enchilada, the Las Vegas Motel sign has been completed and was recently reinstalled along Fremont Street. There are still 3 more signs undergoing renovation on that original project. The National Atomic Testing
Excuse
Museum.
me, if I might, does that, those 3 next, that completes the first phase?
That completes Phase 1 from the Centennial Commission funding, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then the National Atomic Testing Museum was ratified by City Council on July 22nd, so they are free to move forward. And the only last update I have is the Las Vegas High School Performing Arts Center renovation project that was funded by the commission. What has funded through commission funding is the painting and repair of the Diamond Breezeway, as well as this, it's hard to see in this picture, but it does say high school auditorium that was repainted. Also, there are the historic markers, those metal plates that you're looking at, that's where the plaques will be mounted on. They are still in production. Again, that has been delayed a little bit by COVID-19. And they're still slated to complete everything, hopefully by the end of the year. And I know that there's also a neon sign that is on display in this photo, that was not part of commission funding, so that was not part of our project. I'm happy to take questions.
Any questions from members?
Just a couple of real fast ones. The work on the hay barn, first of all, I just want to say thanks to all the work that was done on that. I'm glad to see that's been finally worked out with SHPO. There were some challenges there, but through the hard work of the city, and we were able to move that forward. There's a meeting this week regarding this sign. Is it this week, Senator? Is it this week? There's a meeting on this neon sign.
Is this the meeting with the trustee Young?
Yes.
Yes, that's later this week.
Regarding again, it was checked, but it was not funds that this commission approved.
This commission did not fund that neon sign, no, sir.
So if you see in this picture, though, you can see it says Las Vegas High School Auditorium. That's the name that it was since 1950. It looks like it's been painted out, but that's...
It's been painted.
Yeah,
Yes.
painted black. So you can't see it. So that's all I have for that. Thank you.
And I have a question on the plaques. Are those, what are those, bronze, and how are you sure they're not going to be lifted as we lost, or was defaced way back 3, 4, 5 years ago? In fact, they stole the signs at the old Las Vegas High School.
They are aware of the risk of vandalism or thievery. They will be bronze, and they should be mounted so that they're not able to be stolen. However, obviously, there are no guarantees in life. They have put up additional lighting in the school, in the front yard. That would hopefully also be a deterrent.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I have a
comments?
question, if
Yes,
I may.
please,
Member Brian, with respect to any of these future requests, now that would come to the city, would that, in terms of lighting and things like that, wouldn't that require some city approval? Robert was very helpful the other day, and I may have misconstrued what you were telling, but I thought lighting, if it's within 250 feet of a residential area, there are some limitations under the code, and Seth, I'd certainly defer to you on that, but I thought that was the thrust of what you were telling me.
Madam Chair, through you, Robert Summerfield, City of Las Vegas Planning Director.
Yeah.
So yes, Senator, so while the school district for on-site work doesn't require a City of Las Vegas building permit because they can permit their activities through the State Public Works Office, they do still have to comply with zoning restrictions. So things like residential adjacency for lighting, for signage that may have a lighting impact on neighboring residences. Those zoning restrictions still apply, and we're currently working with the real estate team from the school district to determine exactly what happened with this sign and try to get the plans for it so we can verify whether or not it satisfies the zoning requirements. If it does, it will be eligible to get a sign certificate from the City of Las Vegas. If it doesn't, then they can actually, there is a public hearing process that they can go through to get the sign potentially approved by Planning Commission or the City Council to ultimately have that sign, but that's a process that they would have to go through. Because of the way the school district's permitting is done, sometimes we have unfortunately had schools, because they, in an effort to, because of the bureaucracy of the school district, in an effort to provide some level of, and I'm just going to use the term that we would use here at the city, home rule for the schools sometimes just do things and don't necessarily communicate back to their offices in the school district. So we're trying to work with them to figure out exactly what happened and determine whether the sign is legal as is or if there's some additional process that will be required.
If I may again,
Please.
Your Honor, Robert, thank you very much for the conversation. Some of us are very interested in this issue, and when you and I talked last week, I believe that you told me that at this point, there's been no application by the city, or strike that, by the school district, respect to this sign here in terms of lighting or any other aspect that would be required by the city code.
Correct, Madam Mayor, through you. So yes, Member Bryant. So yes, at this point, we have not received any official request for a zoning review of any of the structural elements that have been changed here. Obviously, the painting and the other stuff and the statuary with the panels, that doesn't really require any zoning review. However, the signage and any new lighting that may have impacts on any neighboring residential development, those do have zoning impacts, and we do need to review those.
And you indicate the permit would not be required by the city, but would go through the Public Works Board, is that?
Correct. So a building permit is not required because it's on-site work. They would have to go through the state's Public Works office to do their, basically it's an internal permitting process that the state has. But what they do have to do is they have to get zoning approval, which for the City of Las Vegas, we have what's called a sign certificate. That's basically our sign-off that a sign is meeting the zoning code for signage, which governs signs in the City of Las Vegas. Typically, we do that as a part of a building permit, but where a building permit is not necessary in this case, that's a separate application that needs to be completed. As of yet, that process has not been done. So we're trying to determine exactly what they did do, whether it meets code or not, so that we would then do the sign certificate program. If it doesn't meet code, then there's a process by which they can get the sign approved. That would be through a public hearing process.
And Robert, one last question, if I may. Do you happen to know who it is at the Public Works Department in Carson City is the one that typically the school district or an entity that would be exempt from the city's permitting process would have to go through?
Madam Mayor, through you as chair, unfortunately, I don't, because that's something
Okay.
our building official generally deals with directly, because it's his purview that's superseded by the
Okay.
state more so than mine. However, that is something I can speak with our building official, Kevin McCosker,
Well, if you can
and
give
find
me-
out if he
Just let
knows
me
the
know who
name.
to contact. Thank you very
Absolutely.
much for your help. I appreciate it.
And Member Coffin, don't go away, please.
Thank you.
Member Coffin.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm a little puzzled by this dialogue because there is no residential very close to these. It's the Mormon history, Old First Ward, now the Mormon History Center is across the street. It's all professional/commercial. And so what are we talking about here? What's the problem?
Madam Chair, through you, Madam Mayor, so to Member Coffin, so there's two issues that the senator asked about. One was about lighting, and I prefaced, if there is a residential component within the feet, then we have to review the lighting to ensure that it's meeting with our residential adjacency standard. The signage is a separate question that has multiple parts. As a part of the signage question, one, the signage still has to be reviewed for compliance with the zoning, period. That's related to the size, the placement, and the manner in which it's illuminated.
This is getting way, way out of hand here.
Well, that-
You got to cut through it all because we have a need for more lighting down there, and that's been expressed by people who have businesses there.
So again, the lighting would only become a question mark for planning is if it intrudes on any residential district that's within a certain distance to the property.
Well,
Because
when you had
again,
the,
we
you know,
have
80
those
feet across the
protections
street,
for the
it's gonna be-
residences.
It really ought to be cut through. I used to represent the area, so I'm familiar
as
with
you
the
know,
fights.
we don't
There
cut
are no
through
more
anything.
fights there on that.
Right. So again, I don't know that there is a lighting issue with any residences. I'm saying if they add additional lighting to the site, that would be one of the considerations that they need to take into account prior to citing the lighting and the type of lighting. All of that plays into that conversation. But again, the sign is separate from this conversation of additional lighting that may need to be required for security purposes and what have you.
Your Honor, if I may, just one more last, the backstory here, Commissioner, is that this building was moving forward as part of the National Register of Historic Places. Mysteriously, through a Byzantine process, it was dropped. It was dropped. Yes, it was dropped as part of the nominating process, and we can talk more about that. We don't know at this point, and Robert's been very helpful, all of a sudden this sign that many of us believe might deprive it of eligibility on the register. You played a key role in that when you were in the state legislature years ago. So that was the issue that concerned us, is all of a sudden this sign appears. Now, we knew that they wanted to put a sign, but we've objected to that, the Alumni Association. So that's the backstory of this, and I apologize, Your Honor, for taking to it. We can talk about that later. Yeah.
No, I think it's important to have it on the record because it's something with which we want to make sure that when we allocate funds or anything, that we are in fact coordinated with all different parts of the process. So thank you. Thank you very much. And so thank you, Dr. Seabrand. And I'm going to ask you a couple of questions as I go to the next item, which is 13, discussion regarding topics for future agenda items. Comments made during this portion of the agenda by individual members shall refer solely to proposals for future agenda items, and any discussion shall be limited to whether or not such proposed items are within the purview of the commission and/or whether such proposed items shall be placed on future agenda. No discussion regarding the substance of any such proposed topic shall occur, and no action shall be taken. So in your report, and I don't know where it comes, maybe later on, the retreat, August 10th? So when are we getting that? Is that part of here? And then advertising, marketing of our license plate. Where are those going on the agenda, or what are we doing with both of those two items?
So the August 10th, I'm sorry, Seabrand for the record. So the workshop is August 10th.
So everybody on the commission, you have that on your schedules, if you are here and not flying somewhere?
At 2 p.m. in this room. And we will be discussing, I don't remember each and every item, but the marketing will be discussed of the license plates, as well as the list that the commission approved. I think it was our last meeting, June meeting, perhaps?
Okay, I think, yeah, I just wanted to make sure those were addressed here and that we get them in. And then any other, yes, Member Hilton, please.
I would just hope that during that workshop that we would also bring back that whole idea of whatever the archive or retrieval method of learning, having access to all the things that we funded and the different projects that we've done something with, that it's somehow retrievable somewhere.
Yes, that is on the, Sabrina, for
Thank
the record,
you.
yes, that's on the agenda.
Thank you. Any other member? Yes, Member Arnold.
I know this is me repeating myself, but can we splurge and have water for the next meeting?
Amen.
Is that possible?
Yes, I could bring it down next time. I ran late.
I'll take anything.
No, sorry. I can do that. Please remind me, we'll bring them down from above. Okay, we have one more. Anything else? I see nobody raising any hands or anything. Agenda item 14, citizen part, and I want you all to notice it's, at this moment, it's 13 minutes of 4. And our Dr. Brandt has said that we will try to always keep this to 2 hours, 2 to 4, so we will be punctual. Citizen participation. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the commission. No subject may be acted upon by the commission unless the subject's on the agenda. Schedule for action. If you wish to be heard, please come forward, give your name for the record, the amount of discussion, any single subject, as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed may be limited. Major rush to the microphone. I see and hear no one.
But, still for the record, as a public person, I'll keep in mind your orders, your instructions. I would simply like to say that the City of Las Vegas Communication Department set up a podcast, or was asked to by a national podcast to talk about historic places in Las Vegas. Diane contacted the chairman of the Historic Preservation Commission, Clay T. White, and myself. We did that podcast last week, and we simply ran out of time talking about all the work that the city has done over the years and the historic preservation that is occurring in our city. And as I was thinking about each one of the projects, whether it was West Side School or a number of places, it was money that came from the license plate. So we have a lot to be proud of in the city of Las Vegas, and it was a great job. Diane kept saying she'd only been here for a year, but she clearly knew what the heck she was talking about. So it was really a great podcast.
Well, I have to thank members Hilton and Coffin for pushing that license plate, so always thank you. It's wonderful. And if there's nothing else, and thank you, our staff, wonderful, Dr. Brandt, of course, Mr. Summerfield, and our wonderful clerk, and is there anybody I can't see here? And Mr. Floyd, who's been hiding. We are adjourned. Thank you all. Go home and watch television to find out the new restrictions, if there are any. Let's hope not.
The new opportunities for preservation.